It's great to see you all. My name is Brent Malacote. I'm the Associate Superintendent at the Sacramento County Office of Ed. It's always a pleasure to be able to kick off these meetings when I get the chance. I love, for me anyway, it's fun just to scroll through all the videos and pictures and faces and names. It's just such a great group that continues to come together, and can't thank you enough for spending a couple hours with us here today once again. Um, Before we get started, and I don't want to forget, I want to give a lot of thanks to Allie and Placer County Office of Ed. You're going to see a really great spotlight or a highlight coming from Placer County coming in just a little bit. So Allie and Placer, thank you for joining us today and providing your expertise around the work that's going on in your county and the work that you're doing regionally too, because Placer is a powerhouse for sure. So thank you for being here. So let's go ahead and go to the next slide. I'll zoom through these like I usually do so that we can really get to the content. Once again, welcome. Here's our strategic plan that includes our vision, our mission, our desired outcomes. I'm going to land on the desired outcomes today. Instead of reading all of them, I want to talk about that collaborative infrastructure that is listed at the very bottom of this slide today. But I truly feel that that's what's been built is and continues to be built with this group is, and I think that's maybe the biggest value add of all of this is that we're figuring this all out together. This is not about SCOE and or Santa Clara and or DHCS and or any of the names that you might see at some of the top of some of these slide decks. This is truly a collaborative effort where we're figuring it out together. So just want to thank you all for continuing to come and leaning in, providing your expertise, because that's how we're going to get better together is through this infrastructure that we're building. So thank you. And I think we can go on to the next slide. Here's our objectives and our agenda for today. Our objectives are we're going to reflect on the work to date and envision next steps. We're going to empower community voices. We're going to engage in activities to foster collaboration and learning, which speaks to that slide before, the point that I was hopefully making in that slide before. We're going to provide insight on technical assistance and ways to support administration of the capacity grants. Our agenda today, it looks pretty familiar from one meeting to the next, but we have our welcome, our inclusive welcome. We've got some peer learning and discussion. Again, many thanks to Placer and Allie for taking the lead on that today. We'll have an opportunity for some feedback, and then we'll close hopefully with a very intentional closure. Housekeeping, please update your name to include your County Office of Ed. It's a miracle that I remembered to do this before I got to this slide today. So I think it looks like a lot of people have too, but just for later on, just so folks know where you're coming from, if you could add your County Office of Ed or whatever organization you're with, tag it to your name, that'd be great. And we're recording today. So that's something just to keep in mind. For folks that can't join us, it's nice to have a recording for them to be able to go back and check in, or if there's something that you just want to be reminded of, you'll have that opportunity as well. Let's go ahead and go to the next slide. It's Happy New Year, and I think I'm passing it off to Mary, I believe is who I'm passing it off to for this slide and to lead us in an inclusive welcome. And again, everybody, thank you. It's a pleasure to have you here, and we're looking forward to collaborating with you all once again. Mary.
Thank you, Brent, for the grounding and welcome. And since this is our first COP of the new year, we wanted to just give everyone a moment to do a little reflecting and some intentional connecting as we're heading into 2026. So we want to just invite you to think about a quote that grounds you either personally or professionally for the year ahead. And it could be a quote, maybe, or even just an idea or a concept that you've already thought about for yourself that you're going to focus in on in 2026. We also put a document with some quotes that you might want to scroll through and take a look at. So what we're going to invite you to do is we're going to head into some smaller breakout rooms. So you have an opportunity to just check in, connect with a few colleagues in a smaller group, share a favorite quote, a quote from the list, or just an intention that you have for the year ahead. And again, that can be personally, professionally, or both. And just give you a few moments to do that. So I think we'll get those breakout rooms open. And while they're opening, you can take a look at those quotes and enjoy the time. All right. Welcome back, folks. I know we had a nice conversation in our room. Would love anybody, if you want to just take a moment in the chat, you can copy and paste a quote that you loved. I see a few people already did do that. Please feel free to share those quotes or just give a thanks to your breakout room for a nice conversation. And with that, I will pass it to Patrick so we can jump into our peer learning after getting a little grounded and connected. Thanks, everyone.
Great, thanks so much. Appreciate the amazing inclusive welcome. Thank you, Mary. I love a good quote. Felt really sweet to kind of read those and think about those for this new year. Next slide, please.
Just a moment, I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. Thank you. Cool. So, as a reminder to folks, I'm Patrick Shermer, my coordinator here with SCOE's capacity grant team. And we're so excited to have Placer County Office of Education doing a presentation on designing for durability today. Just to kind of provide a little bit of framing, as a reminder, we've really been digging into the blending and braiding series over our COPs for this entire year. I think we started back in January 2025 on this series. And so, yeah, so all that to say, it doesn't mean that we won't kind of come back to this topic of blending and braiding. Sustainability is such an important part of the work we do out there these days more than ever. But we really thought that it was good to kind of be intentional with how we close out. And the folks we thought of was Placer County. We know y'all have been doing really amazing work around this piece. Next slide, please. So just to kind of provide a little bit of framing, so they'll be presenting today around like the interconnected systems framework, which I'm super excited about. When I got a chance to see the presentation last week, it really inspired me around like that real importance of really making sure that things that are happening on the ground level are really connected to what's happening at the district and COE level. I know sometimes those lines of communication can kind of get a little bit lost. And a concrete example that came up for me was the school I worked at most recently. There wasn't a school busing system in that school district. And over again, attendance was talked about as something that was a struggle at our school and a struggle at a lot of schools in our district. And families would say, you know, if there was school busing, that would have really helped us because they struggled. There were some really busy streets in between a lot of the apartment buildings where families lived and the school I worked at. And it was an elementary school, so a lot of families didn't feel safe with that. So it was something that it was just so tough to kind of help the higher ups of the district and the COE like really know like, hey, this is a struggle that's happening on the ground at our school and making sure that that voice was heard. And so this model really feels like a great way to help make that happen. So just so excited for that piece. So just to plug as a reminder, after the presentation, we'll do a break. And then there'll be the breakout rooms and they'll do a Q&A on the presentation if folks have questions after. And then they will also present at our office hours this Friday. So with that, let me find you, Allie, so I can make you co-host. Okay. Oh, I just lost you. There you go. Okay. All right, with that, I'll hand it off to you, Allie.
Okay, thanks so much, everybody. Go in here. All right. So we're really excited to present today on designing for durability, teaming and funding that sustains school mental health. We know that sustaining our programs is top of mind for everybody. And so we've taken a different approach to that. We wish there was a easy solution for how to make sure there was enough money for all of our programs. But what we've really learned is beyond the money, we have to create really good teaming and really good systems in order to find all those dollars and braid them together. So we're going to walk you through how we do that and then hopefully share a couple practical tools if this is the direction that you're looking to go. So like Patrick said, my name is Allie Murphy. I'm the Director of Mental Health here at PCOE. I started about 7 years ago when we started our first school-based wellness centers, and I'll let Stephanie take it over from here.
And I'm Stephanie Kaiser. I'm a coordinator here at PCOE, and I support compliance and sustainability for our Office of Education. Next slide. So here are our goals for today. The first is really to learn an overview of the Interconnected Systems Framework, or ISF as we'll call it from here on out. I know many of us are in lots of calls together, and you may have heard some presentations in the past from PCOE about ISF. I know for me personally, it's taken hearing about and learning about ISF a number of times to really see how it is and isn't like traditional MTSS and PBIS, and also how it could really support our mental health program in terms of sustainability. So even if you've heard about ISF before, I'm hopeful that you'll take something new and helpful away from today's presentation. The second goal is to really understand how ISF teaming can support sustainability of mental health programs. When we talk about sustainability, like Ali mentioned, we typically think about the funding piece and the braiding and blending of funds. And we will talk about that today as well, because it is an important part of sustainability. But a lot of what we're going to focus on today is how we used teaming to really support sustainability of our mental health program. And then lastly, we're going to review some examples of ISF teaming as well as braided funding. So what is the Interconnected Systems Framework? So ISF involves the intentional integration of all social, emotional, and behavioral interventions within MTSS, including integrated teams, systems, and evidence-based practices that are delivered based on student and community needs and presenting data. So these are the main features of ISF, and the first is a single system of delivery. So I think typically when we think about how school systems are structured, we think about the different teams and the different pieces of work that they're doing within the school system. So we have an attendance team and an SEL team and a mental health team and an academic support team. And ISF really takes all of those teams along with their individual referral forms and really combines them to make everything efficient and have everyone working together and collaborating. The second feature is that access is not enough. So simply having a mental health program on campus or connecting with a community-based organization to come to campus to provide services isn't enough. Schools really need to identify those students who have a mental health need, connect them to the appropriate intervention, and then really make sure that that intervention is meeting the need of the student. The third feature is that mental health is for all. So mental health on school campuses is not just for those students with a Tier 3 need, but is really meant to support the mental health of everyone in the school community, including staff and families. And then lastly, MTSS is essential. So really making sure that there are evidence-based practices across all 3 tiers of support. So as a COE and our wellness program, we've run into some challenges with that more traditional model of siloed services within a school system. The first is that typically these teams and these systems have a single source of funding, and that funding isn't typically shared across different service providers and provider types. Second is that our program has typically put an emphasis on Tier 1, and we know that universal wellness is helpful for everyone. However, we also know that typically those aren't billable services. And so we've really looked at what would that mean to shift some of our focus to Tier 2 and Tier 3 billable activities. And then lastly, district contributions for the wellness program and mental health program have varied. So we have some districts that have provided a contribution from the very beginning. And then we have some districts that have never provided a contribution. And so really thinking through long-term, what makes the most sense for sustaining these programs in schools. So this is a really good visual of what I've been talking about so far. These individual teams that are working within their individual list of interventions and really supporting students and families within their individual group. So we have an SEL team, a mental health team, a PBIS team, and we'll see that they're all providing really great interventions, but oftentimes they're not connecting with each other, they're not collaborating across groups, and they're not sharing their individual individual funding streams that come with that work. So what ISF looks to do and supports districts with is moving from this to this, which is one integrated system. So you'll notice now that these teams are connected. All of the interventions are working together at each tier of support, and there is shared data and decision makings across these teams. You might still have more than one team. You might have a tier 1 integrated team that's really focusing on all of the interventions that you see down at the bottom. And then you might also have a tier 2 and tier 3 team that's focusing on the top 2 rows. But what this visual really shows is that across all of these teams, everyone is sharing data and really looking at how to sustain all of these interventions across all 3 tiers. And importantly, they're also bringing their individual funding sources as well to the table. So when we're thinking about sustainability, we're going to look at 2 examples. And the first is the typical co-located model. And in this model, a school district previously provided mental health services to students through a contract with a community-based organization. The CBO provides services to students with Medi-Cal and cannot provide services to any students with other insurance. So in this example, the insurance is really the driver of the service request. And what ISF looks to support schools in doing is moving to this integrated idea, which is that the district community leadership team, the DCLT, which we'll talk about next, would meet regularly to review and align all available funding streams for student mental health services. And this would include LEA BOP, Medi-Cal, and local control and LCAP funds. And in this example, both the CBO and district employed mental health providers would collaborate to deliver services across the full continuum of student need, regardless of insurance status. So in this example, the service delivery is driven by the student need and tiered support data, not by funding eligibility.
Okay, so now I'm going to share a little bit about our integration journey at PCOE and want to start by giving a little context for our county. We know that all of our counties are so unique, and so we thought we'd share a little bit about ours. We have about 77,000 students in Placer across 18 districts. 10,000 of those students attend charter schools, and half of our districts only have 1 or 2 schools. So you can imagine that some of those communities are more rural and the needs there might look different than some of our larger districts. And really none of our districts are super large when we think about some of the larger districts across the state. We also in Placer have seen over the last few years an increase of children ages 5 to 9 moving to our county, which is really creating a diverse population for us, and demographics are constantly changing, and the need for schools, the current schools we have, but also in some areas building new schools, has really increased over the last few years. And then some context about insurance and things. We have a lower Medi-Cal rate than the state average. It's about 22% lower than the state average. And this impacts viability of our community-based providers. In that example that Stephanie gave, a CBO might have a difficult time contracting with a school to provide services when there is not that many services that they could bill for through Medi-Cal. And that's, of course, historically, we know things have changed with the fee schedule. We have a lower poverty rate, which is great in a lot of instances, but also impacts the state and federal education funding that we have access to. And then couple that with the difficulty that our students have accessing mental health coverage through private insurance. They're often on long wait lists or can't get services more than 1 time a month. And again, we know these things are changing, but this is all the context that we come into with as we started the fee schedule, and also just thinking about the needs of our students and how some of their tier 1 needs may have risen to tier 2 or tier 3 because of the access or lack of access to services. And then we also have a lower average of PPS support. So the school counselor ratio for us is 727 students to 1 PPS counselor compared to the state average of 626 students to 1 school counselor. Okay, so here's a little community data profile for Placer. This is one of the products that you get when you're doing ISF as a district. And so there's a big emphasis on looking at school and community data, which we'll talk about more in a little bit. But you'll see here, there's a lot of demographics for our county. It shows Placer County versus the state average. So I'm going to point out a couple of things here. So for example, our median household income, which is in the upper right-hand quadrant, is higher than the state average. And our single parent household is lower than the state average. But if you look down at the bottom here, you'll notice we're higher in a couple of areas. So our opioid-related ER visits is about 4 times higher than the state average. And then our suicides are also higher than the state average. So when we are working with our schools, or when we're thinking of as a COE, what kind of mental health supports we're going to need, we're looking at this community data, because looking at, for example, the opioid-related ER visits, we might be partnering with public health, with our county, to look at that data to leverage services, but also to leverage funding to help address some of those needs that our community is facing. And then here's a little timeline of our ISF journey. So in 2012, we began implementing PBIS. And then in 2018, we were able to fund 6 wellness centers. And then in 2020, we increased that funding to expand our program and really saw the need to systematize our wellness and MTSS supports into one system. And so a couple years later in 2022, we received a grant to start ISF, which really helped us take our PBIS systems that we started a while ago, take our wellness and mental health systems that we had had some experience in, and combine them into one system to meet the needs of students. Okay, so now we're going to talk about what a district community leadership team is. So the DCLT is an executive team of district, community, and mental health leaders guiding ISF implementation. Using data, they set strategic goals to plan, implement, and sustain student support systems, requiring time, resources, representation, and decision-making authority. So we'll go into a little more detail on this here. So you'll see here that if you look at the very top, there's the district community leadership team. And then down below, you'll see the school site teams. Stephanie talked about these a little bit, but in an MTSS system, you should always have a tier 1 team, and you should always have either an intervention team or a cost team or a tier 2, tier 3 intervention team. Really the difference being tier 1, we're talking about school-wide, and tier 2, tier 3, we're talking about individual students or smaller groups of students. So that will all continue, but in the ISF model, you should really have a DCLT that's communicating with the school teams, one, to get feedback. So like Patrick pointed out, that information about busing being needed for students, that's great information that school site people probably have that needs to be communicated back up to the DCLT. And the DCLT needs to be meeting and talking about those resource needs and then communicating back to the school team. So there's a really clear communication loop here, and there's a lot more info and kind of in the weeds tasks and activities that a DCLT would do to ensure that they're getting that really good info from their school teams. So this is the expertise and skills that you really should have on a DCLT. So instead of just someone saying, hey, we have busing needs, you might need a transportation person on your DCLT, or someone who's a real expert in attendance if that's something that your community, your school community is dealing with or is important to them. You need someone with school-based mental health experience, someone with PBIS or whatever other kind of system you might be using in your district, someone with SEL and student wellness knowledge, family and student voice, public health knowledge, implementation and improvement strategies, planning, facilitation, and project management, school operations, data, and you want to be thinking about school data such as attendance and grades and dropout rates and all of those things, as well as community data like what we showed you. So the opioid-related ER visits and suicide data and all of those sorts of things. And this may look different district to district, so you're not required to have all of these things. One thing I really would push for is making sure that you've got someone with mental health expertise on that team. We've found that it's easy for schools to create these teams and maybe have that person kind of consult versus actually being on the team. So you really want to make sure someone with mental health experience is a true member of this team. Okay, and so here's the ISF implementation process. So there's a facilitated process. We're going to show you what those activities are that they do, but someone with knowledge of PBIS, SEL, mental health, and implementation science would facilitate these activities for the DCLT to go through together. And we talked about who those players would be. And then what this will result in is an integrated multi-tiered system with services across the district. So one request for assistance at the school site, one team meeting to talk about, grades and attendance and mental health, kind of like that visual that Stephanie showed. And then here's kind of the steps that they would take. You need to establish who's on the team, take the district systems fidelity inventory, identify resources, and you may be exploring additional partnerships, funding, or MOUs from that conversation. So perhaps, like in the district Patrick talked about, you have this need for transportation, you meet as a team and you figure out how you can fill that. And so now out of that, we're building new partnerships. We might be adding someone new to the team, we might be developing MOUs for those needs, and then creating that universal request for assistance, identifying a demonstration site, exploring a universal screener, and then engaging in scaling and continuous improvement. So we're not going to go into the details of all of these, but this is just for you to kind of see there is a really clear process for what this team would do. And the scaling and continuous improvement is really to show you that you will take the DSFI again and see what progress you've made and continue to work on how are we meeting the needs of the students in our school and district. And that's changing all the time. So we're going to need to keep taking this DSFI to look at that over and over again.
And I'm not going to go too far into this slide, but like Ali mentioned, putting together a DCLT is not just gathering all of your people and then scheduling out meetings for the year that these are the dates we're going to be meeting, but it's really coming together, ensuring that the right people are on the team, and then moving through a series of activities to really strengthen those partnerships, identify interventions and supports, and really make sure that that DCLT is ready to support schools and students and families. So it is linked here if you're interested in looking at what would it mean for me as an LEA to put together a DCLT and how do we do that really well into Fidelity. It's moving through all of these steps and activities. So another thing we were thinking about as we were thinking about our sustainability for our program was really being flexible with roles within our organization. And so I'm going to use myself as an example because my role has shifted significantly from when I started at PCOE by leveraging expertise and knowledge from previous work experience to be able to support sustainability of our program. So prior to coming to PCOE, I started during COVID in 2020. Prior to that, I had been a school-based therapist for 10 years. So I was an EPSDT therapist. I was that traditional model where I'm an outside provider who's coming onto school campuses and providing tier 3 mental health support. And I was very siloed in my work there, but that was the way that the model worked. I also had experience with clinical supervision and some program management in that role as well. So when I came to PCOE, I started as a school-based mental health specialist in one of our wellness centers, providing direct services at all 3 tiers at my school site. Within a year, I advanced into clinical supervision and leadership because I had that experience in my past roles. This further expanded in the future to supporting PCOE's Medi-Cal billing through LEA BOP. So again, because I had come from the world of EPSDT and I had that experience as a school-based therapist, I was able to then support PCOE as a whole with their LEA BOP billing program. And through that work, I was able to support with documentation standards, as well as an auditing process, really thinking about how are we going to sustain this program? Most likely it's through billing. We don't know exactly what that's going to look like yet, but let's make sure that we're putting practices in place now, including documentation, to make sure that when billing comes up for us, we'll have all of our systems in place to be able to do that well. So this is what my role looks like now. So I have transitioned to be the LEA BOP billing coordinator for PCOE, as well as the fee schedule billing coordinator. And what becoming the PCOE LEA BOP coordinator has allowed us to do was to access general funds through LEA BOP. So while previously my role was 100% grant funded, because we've been able to leverage some of my expertise and shift my responsibilities to support LEA BOP, I'm no longer 100% grant funded, and we've been able to access another revenue stream through PCOE. So this is just one example, but as we're thinking about sustaining these mental health programs that we've built, really thinking about who on our teams has areas of expertise that we can leverage in a different way that would potentially open up additional funding streams.
Okay, so we just got a couple more slides here. So that's one example of how someone's role might shift when you're teaming. And then I also want to give an example of a team. So we have an early childhood department here, as I'm sure many of you do. And our associate superintendent who's over that is really passionate about mental health and wellness. And so early on, we explored providing some support to that department. So we're housed in different departments, but we were able to provide a half-time person to come and provide mental health supports in our preschools and work with families and all of that. And as we were doing that, we realized they had so many great supports. They're doing teaching pyramid, which is basically ECE PBIS. They had a behaviorist. They had staff that were so willing to get training and support. And we had the backing of our administrators wanting this as well. And so we went through the DCLT with that team. And through that, we were able to figure out areas that we needed to be tightened up, areas that we needed training in, what evidence-based practices would most benefit the families that we were serving. We got a couple staff trained in PCIT. And then I've been able to partner with our county for, students, children in foster care and things like that to get that service. And so through the DCLT process, we were able to look at other funding streams as well. So we now have a full-time mental health specialist who is housed in the EC department, but is supervised by our department. And that wouldn't have happened if we hadn't been able to meet as a larger team and uncover all the different resources and funding streams and things like that. Okay, and then practically speaking, here's how we keep track of all these strands of the braid, because sometimes the braid has 20 different strands and it can be a lot to keep track of. So we have this big, gigantic spreadsheet, and this is just a little snapshot of it. But what you'll see on the very left-hand side is the different positions we have. So we usually have everyone's names here. So Stephanie, Allie, everyone in our department. And then we would have how much their salary and benefits cost. And then as you go over on the right-hand side, you'll see like resource 1000, resource 1111. These are all the different strands, all the different braids of funding that we have that we can utilize. And so as you go down the spreadsheet, you can look at, okay, what percentage are we paying, Stephanie out of an LEA BOP, or what percentage is so-and-so being paid from ECE. And so what this allows us to do is to look at where do we have gaps in funding for someone's salary, or where do we have this braid that we might be able to utilize if someone is able to work on that particular strand. And just helps us, the formulas and stuff can help us really see, oh, hey, look, we only have 90% of so-and-so paid for right now. What do we need to be looking at there? And so this is a great tool for us to use as we're having conversations in those DCLT and as we're planning for the following year. Okay, so there's a lot of resources you can explore if you're interested in this. Also, if any of you are part of BHSSA grants, so if you have any of the grants through CBH, whether that's you have it or one of your districts or you're partnering with your county. If you're interested in ISF, Placer is one of the technical assistance providers for program implementation. And we're going to be doing a few webinars on ISF and also taking on a few either districts or counties who want to go through the DCLT. And those would be no cost to BHSSA grantees. So if you're interested in that, feel free to reach out and I can get you some more information. Okay, I think I'm handing it over to Carissa, right?
Yes, that's right, Allie. Thank you so much, Allie and Stephanie, for such a rich presentation on interconnected systems framework, and also those excellent examples of ISF teaming and braiding funding. That spreadsheet looks so interesting. Saying that beyond the money, we need to build great systems that help with sustainability really resonated with me. So thank you again, Placer COE, for such a wonderful presentation. Okay, so now we are going to head into our break in a few minutes, but before that, something that we started in our January COP, and we're continuing for this month, is splitting the breakout rooms so folks get the chance to dig into two separate topics if that's something that you're interested in. Or you may also choose to just stay in one breakout room if that's something that you'd like to do. So this is coming directly out of feedback that we received from all of you around what would be most supportive for our community. So one thing to remember is you will not come back to the main room after you're done with your first breakout room. Instead, you will have about 3 minutes to choose to either stay in your original breakout room or move to another breakout room. So we will need your help as we prepare our breakout rooms. So we are going to ask you to please indicate which breakout rooms you plan to join when we return. Our colleagues will be launching that poll. There you go. Thank you so much. So as soon as you indicate your choice and we get to about 70%, we're going to head into our 5-minute break. So when we return from break, we are going to go into our peer learning discussion. So we're also going to keep the breakout room discussion areas listed during the break so you can continue to think about which rooms you're going to be joining. Okay, I hope everyone had a chance to stretch, grab a quick sip of water or coffee, whatever it is your chosen beverage for this afternoon, and during our break. So welcome back. And let's see. So to briefly review, our slide right now shows our breakout rooms. Again, a reminder, we are splitting up the breakout rooms so folks can dig into two topics if that's something that you'd like, or you can also choose to stay in the same room the whole time. And you will not need to come back to the main room after you're done with your first breakout room. Instead, you will have about 3 minutes to stay in your original breakout room or move to another room with another topic. So as with every COP, each breakout room will have a facilitator to guide and document the discussion. Following today's meeting, a summary of the breakout room discussions will be posted to the Capacity Grants website to support continued peer learning and networking. And when we come back, we will ask each room to share out using the Zoom chat so you can consider if there is a nugget of learning you would like to share with a larger group. As a reminder, the Q&A will remain in the main room and will start in about 2 minutes after we're able to get everyone situated in their breakout rooms. So we're going to open the rooms in a sec. These rooms are self-select, so please go ahead and select the room that you are most interested in. If you are having any difficulty joining your assigned room, please remain in the main room so that we can assist you. And with that, we're now launching the breakout rooms. Enjoy your conversations.
All right, welcome, welcome. Welcome back to the Q&A room, the main room for the COP. We have Placer County in the house today, everyone, and now all of you are joining us in this lovely, lovely space in the land of COP with the space of Placer County and all of you. We and thee and everyone of California, let's be. Well, we appreciate all of you. We're going to wait just another moment as folks come back into the main room. It looks like we might be at that space. Yes, the Plandia. I love that. Yes. The land of happiness and spaces and places for healing and love and sharing and community. It's the Landia. Well, with that humor and lightness, we'd like to go ahead and have the opportunity for folks who'd like to share out from some of their learning in the breakout session. So if you'd like, you can feel free to raise your hand and come off. We're hoping that folks would like to share an aha, a kernel of knowledge, something they'd like to share out. Feel free to raise your hand, come off mute. If you're feeling a tad bit shy, you can also put it in the chat for everyone's eye. Yes. Welcome. And is it Najwa?
Yes,
Amazing. I love your name.
thank
Welcome.
you. Thank you. So I was in the CWC room and we had some great conversations about um, basically the steps that we have been taking to um, support the growth of our CWCs and how we're approaching the integration of this kind of newish field with our district partners, while also uplifting um, like future interns and how to prepare them and ensure that they're receiving the trainings that they need to be able to learn um, not only their specific roles based on their fields of learning, but also how to work together and navigate through a referral system as they are um, participating in these learning opportunities in these educational settings. And also in that, how to approach our, specifically, I was sharing approaching our district partners in their integration of wellness coaches as we are allowing them to utilize our wellness coaches to kind of see how wellness coach program could integrate into their systems and to begin participating in some of those the tiered systems with the fee schedule onboarding piece as there's like a lot of stressors related to more of the financial landscape. So how to navigate a lot of these frustrations or these stressors and meeting them where they're at without pushing or forcing any like forward actions, but still creating that space for them to um, observe progress or have the opportunity for some progression um, while recognizing that they don't necessarily have the bandwidth to do that themselves. So that was a lot of what our conversation was around. I'm sorry, I
Wow.
ramble a lot, but thank you.
No, oh my gosh, no, you really created the context looking at the certified wellness coach and this emerging role in community in terms of fidelity and calibrating services and new spaces. Amazing. Thank you for sharing. I know that touches a lot of thoughts in my mind. I'm sure everyone wants to know more. So we'll have to circle back with sharing some of the outcomes. Yesenia, welcome. You'd like to share?
It's more of an acknowledgement. I just want to acknowledge Patrick and Amanda, who have been preparing this toolkit and as a last licensed practitioner and with a lot of concerns with our LEAs with when it comes to documentation and what seeing what they've been working on. It brought a lot of relief. Also knowing that they understand the legal and ethical concerns that come with it. So I want to just really take the time to acknowledge Patrick and Amanda from Mendocino and the work that they did because it's very detailed and it really, as a practitioner, you're concerned about the licensure and just the legal and ethical concerns, and they really were able to really work on that. So thank you.
Oh, I love that. Sharing the love. Beautiful. And everyone just throwing up their hearts and the claps. Absolutely. A reflection of the beauty of this community and Amanda leading the way and Patrick leading the way. Thank you so much. And Yesenia, sharing the love. Bravo. Chris, Mr. Chris, welcome.
Thank you. We had a robust discussion around Tier 1 services within the fee schedule. And I think a lot of the sentiment reflected was the feeling like there was a mismatch going on in between sort of the medical community and the education community and feeling the need to sort of bridge that divide. One of the topics that came up was around the concept of a population-based intervention. In other words, the idea that, such as with vaccination, where you don't have to have an assessment, it's something that's done for all, that we would have a similar concept applied to SEL as a tier 1 kind of an approach. And that really, if we understand that from the education side, that's kind of our concept. How might we best advocate that to our friends and colleagues over at DHCS and other places? So that's what we're percolating on.
I love it. The educational inoculation of behavioral mental health. That's awesome. Oh my gosh, there's so much good stuff coming up. The SEL wellness vaccine. Yes. The jab will do ya, brings you happiness and clarity of the mind. That's right. That's so cool. Well, in the Q&A room, for all those amazing folks that were out doing other breakout rooms of great and cool topics that we're hearing, Allie and Stephanie shared some examples of what they're experiencing, and I know they're going to be coming back on Friday, which is very cool in the office hours where some of you folks will have a chance to ask some questions and they can share some more. But to highlight, they shared a graphic of showing how they're tracking interventions and visits into wellness centers and showing how they can track and then find out how decreasing visits into their wellness centers is also showing a success response to intervention and showing how they can share that to classroom teachers and other constituents and community folks to see how to advocate for how their wellness interventions are really impacting in positive ways across the different school settings. And then we also talked about transitioning how to support schools in different settings, some being extremely small and rural and others being larger and robust, and how to calibrate professional development to support kind of that fidelity of programming and alignment and support of that aspect of behavioral mental health. So it was great, and I don't want to do a spoiler alert, but you guys are going to be in for some great conversation on Friday. We'll pause there before you have a poll for folks, but are there other breakout rooms that folks would like to share out about some of the things that they were discussing? I'm going to channel Carissa's wait time. She's a master at wait time. Oh, I can never do it as good as she can. I know you guys are so eager. So with that, as you think about it, we have a poll for folks. Allie and Stephanie are wanting to see where folks would like some additional information for Friday's dialogue in the office hours. So Emily's going to go ahead and put a poll up on the Zoom. Feel free to choose one. They're wanting to know which topic would you like more information for them to speak about on Friday. Expanding on their braided funding spreadsheet and how they use it. Or are you more interested in district community leadership team, the DCLT implementation activities? So please go ahead and vote in. Now I'll practice some amazing classroom wait time. I don't have the results. If we're getting enough results, we wait another moment, team, or should we go ahead and move on with the rest?
We've got about 51%, David, but it's neck and neck. It is. So if any other folks want to, it's literally one, the district community leadership team is one above the greater funding spreadsheet. So this is it. If folks feel strongly about one or the other and haven't voted yet, now's the time.
You know, we may have to do like 6 minutes on one topic, 4 minutes on the other, right? That's beautiful. All right, we're gonna let it stand for another minute or so.
Oh, it's okay. I just ended it. Yeah, I think
Oh,
they got knocked over. Yep, a bunch of people jumped in and voted, so I think we've got a winner.
look at that.
It's going to be a
Oh,
district and community leadership team implementation activities on Friday. So excited for that.
awesome. And don't worry, we're gonna go ahead and have Allie and Stephanie share some of the resources as well with the slide deck. So you'll have access to this information and knowing that they're part of our community, they're just a phone call away and they'll get right back to you. All right. Well, with that being said, it's been an amazing community of practice. We would love to have your feedback on your thoughts and feelings and what's the best aspect of your experience. We're going to go ahead and put in some music. I think we have some really cool music by some of our Swifties would like to play. So we're going to play some Taylor Swift for you. Please enjoy that music and give us some feedback, please. We'll see you on the other side of some great music that's just coming up. Oh, love it, love it, love it. You guys are amazing. We're so appreciative of you providing us some feedback for today's community of practice. Thank you so much. The link again is in the chat if you haven't had a chance to go ahead and do that, please do so now. We'll go ahead and have a chance to get your feedback to inform how we plan future topics and future community practices. So we're at the intentional closure of our community practice. So again, thank you so much. We're really wanting to focus on the spirit of getting grounded, connecting in our community as we plan moving into and through 2026. We'd love folks to kind of come together and take a moment and choose one word that will anchor you as you engage in this work moving forward in 2026. So you can share that one word in the chat. You'd be so kind to share it. It would be amazing. Collaboration comes to mind for Kita, and purpose comes through Chris. Grace, Annika shares, and Heather is reminding us of peace. Najwa is curious. Sienna is intentional. Carissa holds hope for all, and Jonelle is peace. Latoya, collaboration, and joy from Desiree. Hope from Jasmine. I know you and I, these words just mean a lot, hearing them from our colleagues. Being present, inspiration. These words mean a lot as they hold a reflection of all of us. We truly appreciate all of you. Thank you so much for joining us here in the community practice. We are stronger as a community. We are amazing to reflect the love and inspiration to support the youth and community through the state of California. So with that, thank you everyone on the team, and thank all of you. We appreciate and love you all. Peace and love, everyone.